outside, something will be happen. When we were coming from our house to the airport, there are so many people are there. They said, no plane, go, 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 go.
Many of these people have cut short their jobs, abandoned their homes and left behind loved ones. They don't know when they'll see Libya again. James Bayes, Al Jazeera, on board the flight from Tripoli to London.
Libya's justice minister resigned on the 21st and has been speaking at a tribal elders meeting in the city of Al-Baida. He's rejected any form of negotiation with the Gaddafi government in Tripoli.
The local authorities in Tripoli offered us a delegation made of senior officials in the eastern provinces. But we don't accept any negotiation until Gaddafi and his sons leave. Such delegation will not have the ability to achieve what we are asking for.
Well, doctors in Benghazi say they have treated thousands of people for gunshot wounds. They say over 300 people have been killed and more than 3,000 have been injured. These bags contain charred human remains. Doctors say some of the bodies were suspected African mercenaries burned during demonstrations. A British court has approved the go-ahead for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to be extradited to Sweden, where he is accused of sex crimes. His lawyers intend to appeal against the decision. They say Assange, who has angered the US government by releasing thousands of secret diplomatic communications on his website, would not get a fair trial in Sweden. His legal team also says Assange risks being transported to the US if he is sent to Sweden. If that happens, they could claim he could face torture or even execution. Well, Tim Friend joins us live from the court in London. So, Tim, the decision is made, but he can appeal, and take us through that sort of process between now and the appeal and what would follow.
Yes, he's got 7 days to make an appeal. He then goes to the next stage of court hearing. But even beyond that, within the UK, he can take this case, if he gets permission to the Supreme Court. And beyond that, he can go to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. Now, that's not a certainty, but in theory, in principle, that would be allowable. So you can see that this process has got some way still to play itself out. He is going to appeal, he's said that already, and those concerns you were mentioning in the introduction about Guantanamo, and even, as was mentioned at one stage and during the 2-day hearing, the possibility of execution, is still a concern in his legal team's mind. Now, the judge today said there was no substantial evidence to support that contention at all, nor was there much evidence to support the fact that he wouldn't get a fair trial in Sweden. The concern of the Assange lawyers here has been that rape trials in Sweden are held at least partially in private. A lot of the evidence is heard in private, the arguments are heard in public. But the judge has insisted that he thinks if extradition takes place, and he thinks it should, then Mr. Assange would get a fair trial. But of course, there are all sorts of conspiracy theories still floating around about this case, and whether there is a guiding hand above it all to really stymie the WikiLeaks exercise of revealing more and more about US government policy around the world.
And Tim, amid all of this, I mean, you talk about the conspiracy theories, amid all of this and all these loaded words like Guantanamo Bay or torture or even execution, sometimes we need to remind ourselves that he's not been charged with anything, he's just wanted for questioning, right?
Yes, but I think one has to remember that there's a substantial degree of opinion around the world that thinks, and there are US congressmen among them, who think he should be tried for espionage and that WikiLeaks should be rated as a terrorist organization. So I think, as the judge has indicated, there is probably no more likelihood of him being extradited to the United States from Sweden than there is from the UK. I don't think it gets any easier if they get him to Sweden. But obviously his legal team feels there are risks, nevertheless, involved in all this.
Tim, thanks a lot for that. Tim Friend, live from outside the courthouse in London. To other news now, and rescuers in New Zealand are continuing their desperate search for trapped survivors after a 6.3 magnitude earthquake devastated the city of Christchurch on Tuesday. Police say 98 bodies have been retrieved from the rubble, with more than 220 still missing. Andrew Thomas has this report.
Officially, hope has not died in Christchurch, but operations are increasingly focused on recovery of bodies rather than the rescue of survivors, the number of those in the temporary mortuary growing hour by hour. A 3-kilometre square block of the city centre is in lockdown as authorities try to make it safe. But on Thursday, media organisations were allowed in, a macabre bus tour taking journalists from one horrific site to the next, past crushed cars, crumpled homes, businesses with their facades ripped off, and the city's cathedral, half the height it was. Among those on the bus, 2 who work for the local television station. It was housed here. The 2 were out in a park shooting an interview about a flower show when the quake hit. They don't think any of their colleagues who were inside here survived.
I'm still asking myself that, why was it me and not my friends? Why was I out of the building when they were? And it's just something that I'll never come to terms with.
Japanese interest focused on the same building, but for different reasons. Inside it too was a language school, mainly for students from Asia. It's thought about 50 of those may have died. Japan has sent more than 60 urban rescue specialists to help in Christchurch, other teams flying in from all over the world, making up an overall team of around 1,000. Some working on top of the PGC office block. It was one of Christchurch's biggest. Survivors have been pulled from here, but not recently. New Zealand's Prime Minister warning that, once complete, the list of the dead will be long.
On the best advice that we have, it would appear as if there have been fatalities from, a number of countries around the world, but being absolutely sure that that is the case, and again, how many people that are registered as missing truly are actually trapped in this earthquake is a different issue. So, look, my guess is as at the end of today and by the end of tomorrow, we'll be in a much stronger position to give you firmer numbers of how many people are like to have lost their lives.
Authorities are now starting to release names of the dead, a difficult task. Such are the injuries on the bodies, identification is by distinguishing marks or dental records. This earthquake hit Christchurch city centre directly. Those buildings closest to the CBD, the worst affected, and this cathedral at the heart of this city in every sense, devastated. Andrew Thomas, AlJazeera, Christchurch.
Just gone 12:30 GMT, 2:30 p.m. in Libya. Let's give you a reminder of the latest developments in the country there. Residents in the eastern city of Benghazi say they have jailed mercenaries operating in the city. Muammar Gaddafi is soon to make a public address, according to state television. He's expected to address